the aftermath of yet another rocket attack from Gaza into Israel. This was the second night in a row that terrorists fired a rocket towards Israeli cities. Last night, the rocket made a direct hit, slamming into a Jewish religious school in the southern city of Sderot. Witnesses say it's a miracle. No one was hit. If the rocket landed just a few feet over, the casualty count could have been catastrophic. The rocket, nevertheless, still broke windows, left a big hole on an outside building wall, sending concrete rubble tumbling below. We spoke earlier with one student who was inside of the school studying at the time of the attack.
Generally, a thing like this you hear about in the news, but this time it happened here, in front of us. A direct hit. The scope of the miracle can't be described. It can be shown. Only by a few centimeters did the missile fail to hit or penetrate. We were actually under the window. But for a few centimeters, we wouldn't be here today.
In response to the rocket attack, the IDF launched a counterstrike inside Gaza. The IDF says fighter jets hit several, quote, terror infrastructure targets. Let's go live right now to the Israel-Gaza border. We have our senior defense correspondent, Jonathan Regev, there for us. Jonathan, tell us more about the IDF response to that rocket. Is the IDF counterstrike still going on, or are they making additional preparations?
The strikes basically ended. They were in the very early hours of the morning, a few hours after that rocket was launched from Gaza, which hit the city of Sderot, not far from the place where we are. That specific strike is over, but is the latest round of escalation over? According to what we're seeing by the preparations on the Israeli side, probably not. We've heard in the early hours of the morning that communities here around the Gaza border in southern Israel have instructed to open shelters, meaning they fear that something might happen. And the army, this is news coming in just now, the army has deployed several batteries of Iron Dome in several locations across southern Israel, meaning there is the fear that this could escalate into something bigger. Will this happen or not? We might get first answers in the coming hours, because we're just ahead of the weekly Friday protest taking place right here behind us on the Gaza border fence. In the past few weeks, those protests have been relatively small, relatively quiet. Maybe it's due to that undeclared ceasefire that was in effect. Maybe it's because of the holy Muslim month of Ramadan and Eid al-Fitr, which was celebrated right after. Now today there's fear that these protests will be bigger and more violent. We'll have the answers regarding that in the coming hours.
Jonathan, given the fact that 2 rockets in back-to-back nights have been fired from Gaza towards Israel, does that indicate perhaps how big that tonight's protest could be, how big the crowd will get at the border fence behind you?
It might be, because we know that Hamas very well has the ability to lower the flames when it wants and make things more violent and bigger when they want. And these 2 rockets, they're a message to Israel. They're a message that the people in Gaza, the Hamas leadership, they're unhappy, whether it's perhaps with the fact that the Qatari money is not coming fast enough or other things. They're sending their message that they're unhappy. And another way to send that message is to send more people to the border fence, make sure those protests are more violent, make sure people actually approach the fence, because one thing that prevented those protests from being rather violent in the past few weeks is the fact that Hamas made sure no one approaches the fence, thus not giving the Israeli military any reason to fire back. If Hamas lets more people come in, the Israeli army will have to shoot at them. We'll see bigger number of casualties on the other side, and that may clearly bring some kind of response from Hamas as well. We'll have to see all these developments in the coming hours. And yes, people here are bracing for a night that could be violent once again.
Staying there live on the Israel-Gaza border, thank you so much for that update. With me in studio is IDF Reserves Colonel and Security Analyst Colonel Olivier Rafowicz. In your mind, what options are on the table, do you think, for the IDF? This is one rocket, not a barrage, but it is causing damage. And already we're hearing calls from some of the Prime Minister's political rivals saying enough is enough, now is the time, you have to have a serious escalation.
First of all, I would say that it's not negotiation when Hamas is attacking Israel by hitting a Jewish school in Sderot. It's a war. And when it's war launched by Hamas against Israel, Israel right now is preparing we believe a massive response, military response. You know that we talk about it for now several months. Every week almost, we are asking the question, is Israel doing something different this time? We believe that this time people are fed up, and the Israeli army is preparing a massive military option.